Sometimes the most important stories are kind of hidden away, buried deep inside these massive scientific reports. Well, today we're going to crack one of those open. We're going to uncover the incredible story of a mountain range that acts as a fragile, living shield for millions of people. Okay, let's get into it.
So, meet the CHURYA range. You can think of it as the baby of the Himalayan family. It's the very first barrier you hit, and because it's so geologically young, it's also incredibly delicate. The soil is soft, it's loose, which makes it beautiful, but also super vulnerable. And the forests that hold these slopes together, they're an absolute lifeline. But here's the thing, the data shows they're in trouble. So the huge question this whole report tried to answer, and what we're going to explore is, just how fast is this crucial shield really changing?
Right, so to really get a grip on what's at stake here, let's zoom in on the CHURYA region itself. We're going to look at the land, the people who depend on it, and exactly why it's so critical for the rest of Nepal.
Okay, so imagine the Himalayas. The Churya are like the foothills, but with a major twist. They're not made of hard, ancient rock. They're basically built from soft, loosely packed sediment that rivers left behind millions of years ago. And that single fact, that they're so soft and erodible, is really the key to this whole story.
And this is not some empty wilderness we're talking about. Over 3.6 million people call the Terai region home. To put that in perspective, that's about 14% of Nepal's entire population, all living in and depending on this incredibly fragile landscape. So you see the paradox here, right? In many parts, it's not densely populated, which allows for this amazing biodiversity to thrive. But at the same time, it's dangerously prone to landslides and erosion, especially when those heavy monsoon rains hit. The forests act like a giant sponge, holding the soil in place and feeding the major rivers that the farms and cities down in the plains rely on. For the locals, these forests are everything: their fuel, their building materials, their livelihood. Okay, so with so much on the line, how in the world do you get an accurate picture of what's happening to these forests? Well, you launched one of the most detailed and ambitious scientific investigations the country has ever seen.
And this number just blows my mind. 1,216. That's how many different spots the scientists went to on the ground. They didn't just look at pictures from space. They set up a massive grid across the entire region and sent teams into every single one of these locations. It was a monumental effort. And their method was super clear and super smart. First, they used high-res satellite images to get the big picture view. But then came the really tough part, sending crews into those 1,216 spots to get their boots muddy. They measured literally everything: tree sizes, soil types, the number of new seedlings, all the different plants. And finally, they took all of that rich, on-the-ground data and put it through a massive analysis to uncover the real story of the forest's health.
All right, so all that work, what did it tell us? The results are basically a complete health checkup for an entire ecosystem. And, well, some of the news is good, but some of it is a pretty serious warning.
And here's the headline number, the bottom line. Between 1995 and 2010, the CHURYA region lost a net total of over 38,000 hectares of forest. That breaks down to about 0.18% per year. Now, that percentage might sound small, but think of it like a slow leak. Year after year, it really, really adds up.
But what does a healthy slice of this forest even look like? This chart gives us an amazing snapshot. So in just 1 hectare, that's about the size of a soccer field, you'd find around 731 mature trees. But look at this, almost 20,000 seedlings. That's the forest fighting back, trying to regenerate itself. The big question is, can that natural recovery keep up with the losses? The report also found this incredible richness, which is key to the forest's ability to bounce back. The teams on the ground identified 281 different species of trees. Just trees alone. Then, beneath that big canopy, they counted 186 unique species of shrubs. And then on the forest floor itself, a totally staggering 322 different types of herbaceous plants. It's this whole complex web of life, this incredible biodiversity that acts like the forest's immune system. And the scientists who did all this work, they didn't pull any punches. This quote from their report is basically a direct call to action. They lay out all the data, and their conclusion is simple. Things are heading in the wrong direction, and we need to do something about it now. It's a clear alarm bell.
So the report shows a clear loss of forest, but what's actually causing it? Well, the data points to a very clear answer, and it's probably not going to surprise you. It's human activity.
Now, this is really interesting. It gives us a better idea of what's going on. So half of the disturbances they found were low impact, but that means the other half were medium or strong. So it's not one single catastrophe. It's more like death by 1,000 cuts. Things like livestock grazing, people collecting firewood, and small patches of land being cleared for farming.
And this comparison really nails down a key pattern they discovered. The deep core zones of protected areas, the places that are harder to get to, were in much better shape. But the community forests, the ones right on the edge of villages and roads, they were facing way more pressure. It turns out how close people are is a huge factor. Okay, so understanding the problem is step one. The final part of the story is about what's actually being done to try and protect this vital lifeline for Nepal.
And this right here is why the CHURYA matters to everybody in Nepal, not just the people living in the hills. It's this upstream-downstream connection. When those fragile hillsides wash away, all that dirt and rock has to go somewhere. It gets carried into the rivers, choking them up downstream and causing devastating flash floods in the fertile plains. What happens in the hills definitely does not stay in the hills.
The good news is that these warnings are being heard. Back in 2011, the government launched a major conservation program just for the CHURYA. There are projects working directly with local communities to help them manage the land better. And the entire region has now been declared a special protection zone, recognizing just how important and how fragile it is. And that really brings us to the big final question, doesn't it? The science gives us the diagnosis. The conservation plans are the treatment. But with a growing population and more pressure on these resources, the future of Nepal's fragile mountain shield and the millions of people who rely on it really does hang in the balance.